here someplace.
Area 42 podcast.
The truth is around here someplace.
Area 42 podcast.
The truth is around here someplace.
Area 42 podcast.
This is the Area 42 podcast. I'm Ray McGuff.
Jake Thornburg.
This is episode 2 of season 2, Questioning the Nature of Reality. The first thing we're going to talk about today is simulation theory. This is the theory that hypothesizes that we are living in an extremely advanced computer simulation. Basically, we're living inside of a machine. It's not the sun in the sky we see every day. This program is telling us that there's an area of warmth, a bright mass in the sky. The first question we usually ask each other is this possible? And most science and tech experts say yes.
Yeah, actually, I don't think I put this in here, but Elon Musk is one of the biggest proponents of this idea.
Mm-hmm.
And he says there's only two choices. We either advance to a point where we're definitely living in a simulation right now, or we've destroyed ourselves. He thinks it's a 50-50 chance that we destroy each other and never create this simulation, or we're in a simulation, and he says you better hope that we're in a simulation because otherwise we'll destroy ourselves before we get to that point.
I'm betting that we're going to destroy ourselves.
I just thought that was funny. I don't think that's the only two possibilities, but
Right.
I think it might honestly in the future become an ethical thing where if you give people simulations, thoughts and feelings, like that's kind of messed up. You know what I mean?
It really is weird. Like, what scenarios would be applicable where you're like, well, I have to keep the entire population in a simulation?
Yeah.
The logistics alone are ridiculous.
Yeah,
right?
and you get into like who's a simulation, who's not a simulation,
Right.
What's real
If
in
you're
the real world, and what's
Is your
fake.
body in some cryostasis and your consciousness is just in the simulation, or is your simulation?
Are you just an
Are you
NPC or something?
Exactly.
You know, yeah. But as far as like tech progression goes, I mean, think about computers have only been advancing for a few decades, and they can do amazing things already. Imagine another 50 years or so, what we'll be able to do with computer simulations.
It's weird. I was just talking to a guy at work about this, right? We're 40, both of us, right? We've lived enough time to see rotary telephones,
Yeah.
manual dialing telephones,
Cordless.
to touch screen technology,
Yeah.
where your phone is a computer in your hand.
Yeah.
I mean, the amount of technology, the rate it's going, it has to get to that at some point.
I think it'll definitely get to it. I think in most the articles I read, they said it would happen, if not in the next century, then before. Like, some people think it could happen in the next 20, 30 years that they could do it. But
I'd say if Donald Trump gets it 4 more years, we'd set that back 30 years.
But yeah, talking about games, I mean, the first video game I ever played was Pong, and it was just 2 bars and a little dot.
Yeah.
And then it came out in
72.
72. Yeah, 1972. And 50 years later, we have like Call of Duty, Fallout, Star Wars, and all these video games that are like so real, they almost look like movies in some parts.
Yeah, I mean, I remember playing like Pitfall Harry, right?
Yeah.
And like never getting that stressed because you're just playing a game. Playing Uncharted, this series on PS4, I've had to pause it because I was having a panic attack because I'm like, this jump is too much for me.
Oh yeah,
You know, like,
yeah, especially if you're scared of heights. There are some games that actually mess with that whole thing in your head when you get up, like Assassin's Creed, when you have to jump off those buildings and stuff.
Yeah.
There were parts of those games where I was like, I don't want to jump off this building. You know?
Shadow of the Colossus, my hand would start to tremble when I would get to the top of the Colossi, you know?
Yeah, and I mean, they have games now like The Sims where you're actually doing exactly what we're talking about, but it's not it's not as what's that called? Immersive. But
Right.
basically, you're making these people, and you're creating lives for these people. And I mean, like Half-Life, and there's a whole bunch of games like that where you basically just play out a false life with all these characters.
Yeah, and you're watching their lives and then dropping in problems for them.
Oh yeah,
You know?
and it's kind of, you can think about that in terms of what's happening now. I mean, things that we've had to overcome just in our lifetimes, like right now we've got the whole climate change thing going on. That's
Right.
a big obstacle that we need to over. War, you know, especially older generations with World War II and all that going on. I mean,
Yeah,
you can kind of see it as obstacles that are being created to entertain for some, which in some ways really messed up, but yeah. I definitely could see that. And I mean, like I said, just a few more years, who knows what they're gonna have. We have virtual reality stuff that's a real big step in that direction. I mean,
right.
you can put on those goggles, and it's, like I said, it's not as immersive, but you can almost believe that you're on a roller coaster ride sometimes in some of those games. I mean,
Right.
they need to get down like smells and feelings and stuff like that.
Well, I read a thing not too long ago that they're going to have these bodysuits that have pressure points for those
Yeah.
war games, so that when you get hit, you feel it.
Yeah,
And not like hurt, but like you know that you got hit by a bullet. You know?
yeah, and like
Yeah.
you were talking about in that Ready Player One movie, they have suits like that,
Right.
that you put on, and you can feel people just touching your arm or getting hit with whatever crazy gun you got
Right.
shot with and stuff like that.
Which is going to make VR sex awesome.
But also, I mean, even today they're trying to download people's entire brains into computers as a way of prolonging life.
This is the one that
They
makes
say.
me literally gasp and start to have panic attacks, because I can't figure out. I've thought about this one a million times.
Yeah.
I would do this. I would, if somebody tomorrow said, Randy, I could download your brain into a computer, I would do it. But my problem with it is the existential question, is it me in there? And if it is me, can I tell it's me? You know?
I think it's the same question with cloning. Like, if you still exist after the other thing is made, it's a copy. It's not you.
Right.
So, I think if you are able to copy your entire brain into a computer, that's a different thing than actually downloading your brain into a computer.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Right, yeah,
So if you say you cloned yourself and took your brain out and put it inside your clone,
Mhm.
that would definitely be you. That would still be you. But if your clone has a brain, it's not you.
Right.
You know?
So when I die,
Yeah.
I'm not, myself will no longer exist, but this
Oh,
other version
well.
of me will. But I won't get to experience that anymore,
No.
because
Yeah.
that's
It's
what
just a copy.
But see, that's what I want.
Yeah.
If I'm going to do it, I want assurances that I'm going to continue on myself.
Right.
Not some new version of me gets to go fucking have robot penises and stuff.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying, though. Is, unless they figure out a way to actually download, like, its data, you know what I mean, being transferred from one thing to the other.
That's what I want.
That's the only way that would be possible.
So
but-
until then, I don't want none of this to happen. Another question you might ask is, how could you tell if we were inside of a simulation? Unfortunately, there's not much you could do to prove this theory. It might be beyond our own comprehension, our own programming in our mind. Pixelization is the one thing that might prove simulation theory. Planck, I believe that's Planck. I'm sorry, Planck length. I read that wrong. I apologize, but Planck length is the point where our concepts of gravity and space-time break down and seem to no longer exist. These subatomic building blocks behave just like pixels, or one bit of information in a computer.
Yeah, and my thoughts on this is that it's really interesting, but I don't think it really proves anything. I mean, we're using instrumentation to look at this, and those instruments we're using may just not be able to measure or, properly observe these things.
Right, because our vision is linked to our brain, right? And our brain can process certain information. At some point, no matter what utensil you use,
Yeah, whatever
technology, your brain isn't going to be able to process something that is beyond your comprehension.
or the instruments.
Or the instruments itself,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
So to me, pixelization is a very cool idea. Like they're saying, it makes sense that you could point to that theory, but you would have to have the all-knowing ability to see beyond what's beyond, which is godlike, and it's not going to happen in a human being.
Yeah.
It's not something that you could ever prove. I don't believe wholeheartedly.
Yeah, I mean, I get what they're saying is that after you break it down so small, it looks just like what a computer simulation would look like. But at the same time, you could say that about a lot of things, that it's similar to a computer system, and it doesn't prove that you're in a simulation.
Right.
That's what. Yeah. So.
Yeah. I've read many little articles about this on my science journals on Facebook, and all of them are like, see, it gets pixelated at a certain point, just like a computer, but it doesn't matter because there has to be more behind it. Whatever's creating it has to have a cell, has to have a cell, has to have a cell. It never ends.
Well, yeah, and I mean, there may actually be a limit to, smallness as well. There might just be a point, just like how they think there's a big thing in space that surrounds all the space that we know of. Like our universe is basically, I think they call it an Oort cloud or something like that.
Right.
Where it's the edge of all known space and we can't travel beyond it.
We can't see beyond it.
We can't see beyond it.
If we could see beyond it, they don't believe there is anything beyond it.
Yeah.
Which is insane. So basically we're living in some sort of bubble. What's beyond that bubble? I don't know. Maybe we're just rolling down, we're a bead of sweat rolling down the back of a big elephant's balls. Who knows?
Yeah.
Nobody knows.
I mean, it could just literally be the limit of what we can measure, or it could be the limit of infinite largeness or infinite smallness.
Could be the end of the program.
Yeah, I guess.
it is weird to think about, but it could very well be. I mean, this is the oddest program. I want to get that out there.
Sucky.
If somebody decided to do this,
I'd like to file a complaint.
Yeah, I want to be put in a much better, like, Oregon Trail scenario next time. But there was a team of biohackers at the University of Washington that proved they could place a computer virus into a strand of DNA. And the experiment was meant to be a warning for gene sequencing tech that goes to great lengths to ensure that they're not creating toxins or diseases. But it also shows that how even our DNA is similar to computer coding, and its ability to adapt and be changed. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's I'm not exactly sure how they put the coding in there. I looked for examples of what exactly they meant by the computer code. If they actually created something that a computer would read as a virus and create it when it read it,
right?
Or if it was actual code. I'm not sure about that. So even though it's pretty crazy that you could do that, I don't think that it proves the simulation theory. I think it might just honestly prove how similar we are to machines, and maybe we're just a lot more like machines than we think we are. That's my opinion on it. It's really interesting.
Yeah, and it does make sense that, I mean, when you look at the human body, it's very mechanical. You know? So
it has processes,
and it can have breakdowns and
errors.
Error. There are many more things that might possibly prove we're stuck inside of a simulation. One of the most popular theories is the observer effect. It says that observing the behavior of phenomenon can change its behavior. A good way to imagine this is if you're pulled into a room where someone is observing your conduct. You might not do something that you would regularly do when no one's looking, like pick your nose or fart or fondle your balls or scratch your balls. Anyone familiar with Schrodinger's cat will understand this concept.
Yeah, I think this is brought up a lot by people who don't really understand this concept. It's the observable effect that they're talking about mostly is caused by the instruments that they use to measure and observe these things with. So, say you stick a thermometer in a turkey, and that thermometer is cold, it'll alter the temperature just a little bit, but it'll make a difference of the temperature of the turkey.
Right.
So, I mean, that's a large part of what they're talking about. The other thing is, it doesn't mean that because we're not observing it at the moment, it doesn't exist. It just means we don't know what it's doing.
Okay.
So they're saying by observing, say, a strong wind, you now know that where that wind is going and what effect it's going to have on other things. But if you're not observing that, you don't know what it's doing.
Right.
So I don't really think that definitely proves it for me, but it's a very, very popular thing in all the websites.
I mean, it is, like you said, a very base understanding of what they're trying to get at.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it does make sense to an extent.
Yeah.
Questioning if reality is what we perceive it to be is not a new thing. People have been doing it for as long as we've been able to understand the concept. This could take weeks to really hit the entire discussion could take weeks to hit every topic that might prove or disprove the entire theory.
Yeah.
Instead of going through each one, we decided it would be more fun to talk about how writers, directors, artists have used these ideas, and the most popular one is probably The Matrix. In this film, the main character finds out that humans are trapped in a simulated reality created by advanced machines.
Yeah, I think these are probably the best films about this topic, and is probably a close tie though with Total Recall, but more specific, that whole movie is about these people living inside a simulation and they don't know it.
Right.
So
and then this goes back way to the Greeks too. You're a big mythology fan.
Yeah.
The gods playing with people as using them as their chessboard or what have you. This isn't a new concept. It's been around since, like you said, since the beginning of man making thought about where we come from and why we're here. So I love that artists have taken these themes and wove their own things. Like, we were talking about Total Recall, Philip K. Dick.
Mm-hmm.
He's written. He was one of the biggest prolific writers when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Do androids dream of electric sheep?
Yeah.
It's not so much as being stuck in that construct as much as it is what does it mean to be human. You know what I mean? Yeah. But the book Ubik that he wrote is all about a guy figuring out that he might be trapped in a computer simulation.
Mm-hmm.
The other one is called Time Out of Joint by Philip K. Dick. So, I mean, I love authors who take these concepts and then build on it and play around with it. Yeah.
And in The Matrix, one of the things I really loved in that movie, they sit down and in the real world, and they're talking about how this pudding or whatever they're eating has all the proteins they need. And this guy wonders about how the machines know what chicken tastes like.
Right.
He points out that maybe chicken doesn't even taste the way they think because they've never actually tried it in the real world before. So it really made it. Yeah. When I saw that the first time, I was like, "Wow, that's crazy." You know what I mean?
That first Matrix movie is really deep, man.
Oh yeah.
Like, there are levels of it where you're like, "Fuck, I never even thought about that."
Yeah, and that's one of the things. I know people get down on the later films because how they compare Neo to Jesus or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people miss the idea that they were trying to push was that humans only know what the machines have told them in that story. They only know everything they've been taught, every legend they know, every myth could have all been created by machines. They don't even know if that's a real timeline that existed. Mm-hmm. All they know, I think Agent Smith or whatever says something like, we created this world to remind you of a great time in your history.
Right.
He could have been lying. That guy lied about a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
You know?
He might have been just trying to poke holes in
Yeah,
his
yeah.
theory.
But yeah, and the part where he dies at the end, for me, I always thought that was about how Agent Smith became this rogue program that the architect created.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what happened is, at least this is the way I understand it, is this machine created a program to get rid of Neo. And basically gave it free reign to do whatever it needed to do that. But then lost control of it and it started to take over the Matrix. There's no way for him to stop it.
Right.
The only way to stop that virus that Agent Smith had become was to let it fulfill its program, which was to kill Neo.
Uh-huh.
And that's why I think he died at the end, was that was the only way that he could that he could stop Agent Smith.
Right.
So I don't think a lot of people really got that or cared to.
I never even
understand
thought
that.
about it. I thought it from the flip's perspective, it was showing you that Neo was the one
Mhm.
because he could construct himself back after death. You know.
Yeah, yeah.
But
So-
you're right. That makes more sense. But we don't know anything about the architect until the second movie.
Right.
You know. So
No, I know.
yeah, putting it together later makes more sense that way.
Yeah, they had a lot of stuff.
I was gonna say you're the one that told me a lot of I never really cared much for the second and third movies.
Yeah.
Until I started hanging out with you, and you explained a little bit more about what the computer jargon meant.
Yeah, like the guy that is watching the old woman when he goes to talk to her, he challenges him to a fight, and they fight a little bit, and he tells him at the end that he just wanted to make sure he was who he said he was. That guy was basically behaving like a firewall would in a computer program.
Right.
He was making sure that somebody didn't get into the program
Who wasn't
who wasn't
authorized.
Yeah, basically.
Pretty cool.
And there was a lot of stuff like that in that movie. I mean, you just gotta kind of sit and puzzle out what each thing is. And yeah, I guess.
I was just there for the non-stop action.
Yeah.
Total Recall, the 1990 version, is a great film.
Yeah, not the reboot.
Yeah, and it's also pretty interesting, and it touches on this topic as well, where a man goes for a virtual vacation on memories of planet Mars, and an unexpected, harrowing series of events forces him to go to the planet for real, or doesn't. That's the overall gist of it, right? And
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
another Philip K. Dick story, short story. We Can Remember It For You Wholesale was the title.
Yeah, that I just want to say they need to stop casting Colin Farrell and stuff. I really hate that guy. I want that on the record.
Jake wants you all to know that Colin Farrell must be stopped.
But this was the Arnold Schwarzenegger one was the first one I ever remember seeing that was like this. There's a lot of parts in the movie where you kind of sit there and question for yourself, like, is he really dreaming or is he really living this out and they're just trying to trick him because he went to the place? you
Right.
know? Like the part where the guy confronts him in that building and says that he's dying in the real world. If he doesn't get out of there right now, that he might die.
Yeah.
And you sit there and like, oh man, because he did go in there and he wanted to go to Mars, where he's at now.
Mm-hmm.
He went in there, he wanted to be like a spy adventure, which he is right now.
Right.
The girl that's there with him is the girl that he dreamed about once. You know what I mean?
Right,
So,
beginning of the movie, yeah.
I mean, there's so many things in the movie that make you question, like, is this really just a coincidence that all this stuff is happening, or is it
And
part of that simulation?
towards the end, you're like, was he really there before?
Yeah.
Remember, because he touches that pad and has that moment of like, I've
Yeah.
been here before kind of scenario, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I think at the end I like how they left it ambiguous at the end, where everything's better, blah blah blah, and then you see this just bright white light, and it almost looks like somebody opening their eyes and looking at like a hospital light above them or something too.
Right.
You know what I mean? So even at the end, you're still like, wait, did he just wake up, or was that just them painting upwards to the sun or something.
Right. I've watched that movie 15 times over the years probably.
Yeah.
And I couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
I still can't tell you, which is why that movie's so great.
Yeah.
It's up to your own interpretation. You know, I
Yeah.
love it. Stay on our movie theme here. We'll do another one here. Vanilla Sky. This is a early 2000s movie, I believe. Yeah.
Something like that.
Not a lot of people have seen this movie that I know. I know originally was a Spanish film that was redone for American audiences. This film is Tom Cruise as a disfigured car accident survivor. His life takes a terrible turn through the movie. You begin to wonder if there's something wrong with his actual world that he lives in.
Mm.
At one point, he drives down a street in Times Square, and there's no one there at all. And in the scene in the bar, a man sits down beside him and tries to explain that the man is in control, right?
That Tom
Tom
Cruise
is in control. That's right.
Yeah.
He's creating these seemingly random problems that keep coming up. Finally, he's told that he was frozen for a long time, awaiting a way to fix his injuries in the car accident. And he's been living in this kind of dream state for several years.
Yeah, they create this dream state for him while he's living as basically an ice cube.
Yeah.
And yeah, he's been dreaming. And the thing about it's kind of like a dream simulation because he designed it apparently. I guess he went in and decided all the parameters of it.
Mm-hmm.
But his own mind apparently was fighting back against it because it knew something was wrong.
Right.
And it was causing all these glitches and crap to occur.
The one thing I would remember is that sometimes he would look in a mirror and it would show his fucked up face.
Yeah, even though he's supposedly in his dream world, he had gotten it all fixed. Occasionally he would see, and that's what I was saying, is it's like you kind of question throughout the movie what's real, what's fake, if he's just losing his mind,
right?
You know, like what's happening. And not until the very, very end do you really know what happened to him.
Right. And it's within, and I'm talking like the very end, like the last 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Because it's one of the first movies I saw like this where I couldn't tell you what the hell was happening through 90% of the thing.
Right. And I mean, it had great actors like, it had Tom Cruise, Penelope Cruz, Cameron Diaz, Kurt Russell, and Jason Lee. It was one of the first movies I think I saw him outside of a Kevin Smith film too.
Right, yeah, where I thought he was going to be like the next big thing.
Yeah.
He was in a couple of movies and did really well. But this was, the Spanish film was called Open Your Eyes.
Yeah.
And Penelope Cruz says that in that movie like 10 times over and over again. And I always wondered why, and now I know because Jake told me today when we were prepping for this that it was in Spain. It was called "Open Your Eyes."
He really hates that because I had it as an alarm on my phone for a while.
This dude was his roommate. Would sleep all day, and then I would get ready to go to bed, and I would hear this alarm going, "Open your eyes, open your eyes." This just loud Spanish woman.
Yeah.
But another film to watch if you're interested in this kind of stuff is called The 13th Floor, and this one might be a little harder to find. I don't know what streaming service it's on.
It's probably on Amazon.
So it's been out for a while, but this is a great one. This is one, if you're interested at all in this, you should check out because it will keep you on the edge of your seat. But The 13th Floor, it's about a team that creates a virtual world so that you can visit different time periods and experience things that you like living in. The twist comes, and I'm spoiler alert here if you haven't seen it. Spoiler alert. Here we go. And now the twist comes when you find out that they've created a simulation inside of a simulation. They themselves are not any more real than the people in their own creation.
Yeah.
It's mind-blowing the first time you watch it.
Yeah, and I mean, it's one of those movies that barely anybody has seen. Like, I'll talk to people, and about 90% of people have never seen it. I don't really know why. I mean, it was a really good film.
Yeah, I don't think it was like a wide release or something. Like, I think it went right to DVD.
I'm not sure. I just know, I don't even know how I found out about it, to be honest.
I remember you had a DVD of it.
Yeah.
That's how I got to watch it.
Yeah, I show a lot of people because everybody's like, oh, I've never seen that.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, one of the cool things in the movie is they say that you can figure out you're in a simulation by driving somewhere that you've never been or never wanted to go in your whole life. So say you never wanted to go to Kansas. You have no desire to ever go see Kansas.
Right.
Get in your car and you drive to Kansas, and you'll hit the edge of the simulation. That was part of your programming to not want to go there because it didn't exist for real.
Right.
So once you got to this place that didn't exist, all you would see is nothingness and like computer code.
Right.
And it was really cool. I remember when they did it in the movie, I was like, oh crap, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And they did it, one of the characters in the simulation they created for the main character and his team, he did it and figured out what was going on, and then the main character figures out that his reality might not be real.
Right.
So he did the same thing and figured it out. And yeah, it's pretty crazy, but
It's one of the better ones.
it shows how these users that are basically playing in the simulation too, how they can mess these simulated characters' lives up. One of them, the main character's user actually comes into him and controls this guy, and I think he has somebody killed, like he kills somebody.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And then the dude's got to deal with the consequences because the guy jumps out. And he has
nobody-
no memory of doing it, but now he's got like
And nobody believes him, as you would. Like,
yeah.
something happened and I didn't do it. Okay, whatever, dude. We got evidence of the otherwise.
Yeah,
So-
and through the simulation that they created, one of the characters figures out how to get out of that simulation. He waits until the guy downloads into him and set up a trap. So when the guy downloads into him, he gets killed, and the brainwave patterns of the fake guy gets put back into the real world that he
Right.
thinks is the real world. So the main character follows that when he figures out that he's in a simulation, and especially after that dude kills somebody,
Yeah.
gets him in all the trouble. So he jumps out, but even at the very end of the movie, you sit there and you're like, wait, what if this is just another simulation he's in? You
Right.
know, like,
I
you better
wondered-
start driving somewhere.
I wondered that at the end. Like, that's how I would have ended it, was with him getting in a car and immediately
Yeah,
driving,
just driving to the
like
edge.
looking at a map, But I really like this movie a lot. It's awesome for this kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
some honorable mentions. You go with yours.
Rick and Morty have a lot of episodes that kind of play around with this. Like, my favorite one was what was the guy's name? Do you remember? He goes inside him in the video game and plays out his whole life.
It's you're taking so and so off grid. What's his name? It's not Jerry, because that's
No,
Jerry.
yeah.
But yeah.
But anyway,
Yeah.
there's this whole episode where he plays a video game in like some kind of arcade, and it's you live out this guy's life, and you get a score at the end by all the original stuff he did, I guess.
Yeah.
And he wakes up and it's only been seconds, but it felt like a whole lifetime for him.
My favorite part of that one was when Morty plays it, and then he wakes up, and Rick's like, "You went back to sell carpet at the carpet store after you got cancer? What a loser!"
After you beat
Yeah,
cancer.
after you beat cancer. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, and then there's a movie called Existence.
Not to be confused with Extends, the male enhancement product.
Wow. How do you know about that product, Randy?
I know because I've tried to enhance my maleness.
Then there was a TV show called Life on Mars.
Man, I fucking loved that show.
I know, I remember.
Yeah. Jake doesn't like cop shows very much.
I
but
love the idea of
Yeah.
the end, but and some of the little parts where they showed where he might not be in the real world.
Life on Mars starts with this guy set in today's world as a cop.
Or I thought it was in the 70s.
Well, yeah, he gets hit by a car.
Oh, yeah.
And then when he
okay.
wakes up, he's in 1970s New York, and he still remembers being in the future. So he's trying to figure out what the hell happened. And this has been off the air for years. I'm going to go ahead and spoil it because fuck you guys if you haven't watched it. That's on you. That's why it got canceled.
Yeah,
I'm blaming all
I
of you.
don't think we can ruin something
Yeah.
that's been over for 20 years.
But the coolest part about this thing was he would see these like space probes and like little Mars rovers and
Messages.
messages.
Yeah, you get messages through the TV and the
The
radio.
final episode reveals that they're on a space mission to Mars, and he had picked the cop scenario to be when he was in cryostasis to live out his cop fantasy, and they were going to go colonize Mars, and thus life on Mars. And I fucking loved this show for another reason. David Bowie's "Life on Mars" song played all the time.
All the time. Yeah,
it was
every
always
episode.
like it was always like
5 times an
yeah,
episode.
and it was in different versions of it too, which are really cool.
Yeah.
So, great show if you get to find it. It's on some streaming service, I'm sure. Life on Mars. They did a British version of this too.
Oh, yeah.
That lasted
Yeah.
3 seasons, and
Yeah.
it was actually pretty good too.
Yeah, and we weren't completely sure about some of these, but we figured we'd mention them anyway.
Right, Lawnmower Man by Stephen King. It's not technically
It's not one where you don't know you're in a simulation.
right, but the thing about it I thought was interesting was a scientist was using virtual reality to augment this guy who was slow and help him in the virtual world get smarter and faster and stuff by giving him this drug and then using virtual reality. To me, it was like he was living his fantasy as God in that world. So
Yeah, he does say that, I think, a couple times. In
yeah,
it.
he says, "I am God" at one point.
Yeah. And Tron was another one you talked about. Right?
Yeah, Disney's Tron. The guy who is in Tron, Jeff Bridges' character, he knows that he's in Tron. He's in the game that he created.
And
But
I think the other ones knew that they're in a simulation, but that was their reality.
right, their reality was they were programs and their jobs were certain classes.
Yeah.
And this other guy shows up and tells them that they can do whatever they want. They have free will, and it kind of blows their whole world out. I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, and when we were looking on the internet, we saw stuff like the Truman Show and stuff like The Island, and
That's more of like a reality push, you know?
it's like somebody playing tricks on you. It's not really like a computer simulation, so I don't think those really count.
So, an honorable mention too, sidebar, if you're a big reader, check out the book Everfree by Nick Sagan. It's Carl Sagan's son. Carl Sagan was a pretty big deal in the 70s. If you don't know who he was or is, hit yourself in the balls and then Google him, you stupid person. But Nick Sagan wrote this great story about a future where the world was so shitty that the top 1% froze themselves in cryostasis and was living in a utopia.
Yeah, you were telling me about this. I actually want to read this one.
And instead of like people trying to get in there, the poor people revolt and they fucking rip the cords out of the shit and they have to come back and live in reality again. It's phenomenal. Highly recommend.
Hopefully they stole all their money too before they unplugged them.
But I'd say that's it. What do you guys think? Are we living in a simulation? Is the world just what it is? It's deep thoughts with us.
Yeah, I mean,
You know?
I forgot,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think it would be interesting to find out that we're in a simulation, as long as you're not an NPC or something like that.
Now, what's NPC again for those of us that don't know?
Non-playable character, like just computer program, basically. Like
Right.
you don't matter at all. Someone else is playing the game, and you're just
So,
a character in the game.
As long as you're playing your own avatar.
Yeah, as long as you're one of the people playing the game, it's cool. If the world just turns off, that would kind of suck.
Would be kind of shitty
What's
though
new?
if I found out that I'm just an avatar for some space alien named Glimplop who's like some kind of fucking tool bag.
Well, yeah, and imagine if after you die, you just see a big sign that says "Game Over" flashing in front of you, and then a score up in the right corner. You know, like
I would say that was for my death. That would be the most ironic.
somebody saying in the background, "You want to play it again?" Like, no.
Yeah.
Let's change this up a little.
They're arrowing it down to put their initials in.
Yeah,
Right when I get ready to just cut off.
But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if any of these. There's so many theories that are similar to this, and I don't know if you could ever really prove any of them. Like, some people believe we're living in a dream. Some people think that this is just an insane idea they had, and they're stuck playing it out. Just stuff like that. You can't really prove that that's going on. So, I don't know. Yeah, that's what I was just talking about.
Oh, okay.
So.
Yeah, it was there's a term for it. Solipsism.
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 Solipsism?
Yeah, that's if you're living in a fantasy world and the only thing that's actually real is you. And boy, I don't think I could sum it up any better. I believe that every day I live in a fantasy world, and the only thing that's real is me.
That's yours, huh?
That's mine.
You know, they call that the narcissist theory.
Well, fuck them.
But yeah, I think that's about all, though.
All right, well, this has been Area 42. I've been Ray McGuff,
Jake Thornburg,
and the truth is around here somewhere.
Area 42 podcast.
The truth is around here someplace.
Area 42 podcast.
The truth is around here someplace.